Have you ever experienced that eerie moment when you're doing something completely ordinary, walking into a new restaurant, having a conversation with a stranger, or visiting a place for the first time, and suddenly feel with absolute certainty that you've lived this exact moment before, down to the smallest details? Or wondered why this mysterious sensation of, "I've been here before," happens to virtually every human being on Earth in remarkably similar ways, despite our vastly different lives, cultures, and experiences? What if I told you that deja vu isn't just a quirky brain glitch or random memory malfunction? It's actually a universal demonstration of Emmy Noether's conservation principles operating in human consciousness, revealing how information processing in the brain follows mathematical patterns so consistent they create identical experiences across all human minds. Today, I'm going to expose why deja vu represents one of the most profound mysteries of consciousness and how its universal nature proves that human awareness itself operates according to fundamental physics laws. The universality of deja vu is what makes it so mysterious and scientifically fascinating. Surveys consistently show that between 60 to 70% of people experience deja vu, and among those who do, the phenomenology is remarkably consistent across different cultures, ages, and backgrounds. People describe the same sudden onset of familiarity, the same certainty that they've experienced the exact situation before, the same brief duration of 10 to 30 seconds, and the same inability to pinpoint when or where the original experience supposedly occurred. This consistency suggests that deja vu isn't a random brain malfunction, but a systematic phenomenon that emerges from the fundamental architecture of human consciousness. Emmy Noether's insights about conservation laws and system symmetries provide a framework for understanding why deja vu might be universal. If consciousness operates according to information processing principles that follow conservation laws, then similar inputs processed through similar neural architectures should produce similar outputs across different individuals. The human brain's basic information processing systems, memory formation, pattern recognition, temporal sequencing, and reality monitoring, are remarkably consistent across our species, following evolutionary optimization that created standardized cognitive architectures. The neuroscience of deja vu reveals how conservation principles in brain function might create this universal experience. Current theories suggest that deja vu occurs when there's a slight temporal mismatch in how different brain regions process incoming sensory information. Normally, sensory input travels through multiple parallel pathways in the brain before being integrated into a unified conscious experience. When these pathways become briefly desynchronized, perhaps due to fatigue, stress, or minor neural fluctuations, the brain receives the same information at slightly different times, creating the illusion that a new experience is actually a remembered one. This temporal mismatch theory demonstrates Emmy Noether's conservation principles in action within neural systems. Information processing in the brain must conserve the total amount of sensory data while integrating inputs from different sources and timeframes. When this conservation process experiences small disruptions, the brain's pattern matching systems attempt to maintain coherent experience by categorizing delayed information as familiar rather than acknowledging the processing error. This represents a form of cognitive energy conservation where the brain prefers to maintain narrative consistency rather than admit to processing failures. The pattern recognition aspects of deja vu also reveal how conservation laws govern human perception and memory. The human brain is constantly comparing incoming sensory information to stored patterns and memories, looking for matches that can help predict future events and guide behavior. This pattern matching system operates according to energy conservation principles, using the minimum cognitive resources necessary to categorize and respond to environmental inputs. Deja vu might occur when this pattern matching system finds a partial match with stored information, but lacks sufficient detail to identify the specific source memory, creating the feeling of familiarity without specific recollection. The timing and triggers of deja vu demonstrate how conservation principles in neural systems create predictable conditions for this phenomenon. Deja vu is more likely to occur during periods of stress, fatigue, or altered consciousness, precisely the conditions when neural processing might become less synchronized, or when conservation mechanisms in the brain might prioritize efficiency over accuracy. The phenomenon is also more common in certain age groups, particularly young adults, whose brains are still optimizing the balance between neural efficiency and processing accuracy. The cultural universality of déjà vu provides additional evidence for its basis in fundamental conservation principles rather than learned behaviors or cultural phenomena. Despite vastly different languages, belief systems, and ways of understanding consciousness, humans across all cultures report remarkably similar déjà vu experiences. This suggests that the phenomenon emerges from basic properties of neural information processing that are consistent across our species, following conservation laws that operate independently of cultural or linguistic factors. The relationship between déjà vu and memory formation reveals how conservation principles govern the brain's approach to storing and retrieving information. Memory formation requires significant neural energy, so the brain has evolved sophisticated systems for determining which experiences warrant long-term storage and which can be processed more efficiently. Déjà vu might represent a byproduct of these conservation mechanisms, occurring when the brain's memory systems briefly categorize new experiences as already familiar in order to reduce the cognitive energy required for processing and storage. The duration and intensity patterns of déjà vu also follow mathematical relationships that suggest underlying conservation principles. Most déjà vu experiences last between 10 to 30 seconds and follow predictable intensity curves, starting suddenly, reaching peak familiarity within seconds, then fading gradually. These temporal patterns resemble other neural phenomena governed by conservation laws, such as the way neurons return to baseline states after activation, or how attention systems cycle through different focus states. The philosophical implications of universal déjà vu extend to fundamental questions about the nature of consciousness and subjective experience. If a phenomenon as intimate and personal as the feeling of having experienced something before can be understood through mathematical principles governing information processing, it suggests that consciousness itself might operate according to physical laws that create predictable patterns across different individuals. This challenges romantic notions of consciousness as purely subjective or unique to each person, suggesting instead that awareness follows mathematical principles as rigorous as those governing any other physical system. The evolutionary aspects of déjà vu provide additional insight into how conservation principles might have shaped this phenomenon. From a survival perspective, the ability to quickly recognize familiar situations and predict potential outcomes would have provided significant advantages to our ancestors. A neural system that occasionally produces false positives, flagging new situations as familiar, might be preferable to one that fails to recognize genuine patterns that could indicate danger or opportunity. Déjà vu might represent the evolutionary cost of having pattern recognition systems optimized for survival rather than accuracy. The medical and clinical aspects of déjà vu reveal how disruptions to conservation principles in neural systems can amplify or alter this phenomenon. Certain neurological conditions, particularly temporal lobe epilepsy, can cause intense and frequent déjà vu experiences. This suggests that the normal conservation mechanisms that regulate information processing can be disrupted by pathological changes in brain function, leading to more extreme versions of phenomena that occur at lower intensities in healthy brains. The technological implications of understanding déjà vu extend to artificial intelligence and machine learning systems. If deja vu represents a predictable consequence of how information processing systems handle temporal synchronization and pattern matching, similar phenomena might occur in artificial neural networks. Understanding the conservation principles that create deja vu in human brains could inform the development of AI systems that exhibit more human-like information processing patterns, including potentially beneficial forms of false familiarity that might improve learning and adaptation. The research methodologies for studying deja vu demonstrate how conservation principles apply to the scientific investigation of consciousness itself. Since deja vu is a subjective experience that cannot be directly observed or measured, researchers must rely on self-reports and indirect measures of brain activity. This creates conservation challenges in research design, where investigators must balance the desire for controlled experimental conditions against the need to create natural circumstances where deja vu might occur spontaneously. The relationship between deja vu and other universal human experiences reveals patterns that suggest fundamental conservation principles operating across different aspects of consciousness. Similar universality characterizes phenomena like tip-of-the-tongue experiences, where people feel certain they know something but cannot retrieve the specific information, or the universal tendency to anthropomorphize inanimate objects. These shared cognitive experiences suggest that human consciousness operates according to consistent principles that create predictable patterns across different individuals and cultures. The next time you experience deja vu, that sudden, unmistakable feeling that you've lived through exactly the same moment before, remember that you're experiencing one of consciousness's most universal mysteries, a phenomenon that demonstrates how Emmy Noether's conservation principles operate within the information processing systems of human awareness. The familiarity isn't a memory leak from a parallel universe or evidence of reincarnation. It's your brain following mathematical laws that govern how consciousness processes information, creates meaning, and maintains the coherent sense of experience that defines human awareness. This universal experience reveals that consciousness, despite feeling deeply personal and unique, actually operates according to physical principles that create predictable patterns across all human minds. Understanding deja vu helps us appreciate both the remarkable consistency of human cognitive architecture and the profound ways that conservation laws shape not just physical reality, but the very experience of being conscious in that reality. The mathematics of consciousness may be more universal than we imagine, creating shared experiences that connect all humans through the fundamental physics principles that govern information processing, pattern recognition, and the construction of subjective reality itself. If you're fascinated by mysteries of consciousness that reveal universal patterns in human experience, subscribe to explore more ways that Emmy Noether's conservation principles explain the hidden mathematics operating in awareness, memory, and the subjective phenomena that define what it means to be conscious. We're uncovering the physical laws that govern the most intimate aspects of human experience, showing how mathematical principles create the patterns and regularities that make consciousness both personal and universal. Hit that subscribe button and join our investigation into the physics of consciousness, the conservation laws that govern human awareness, and the mathematical principles that explain why subjective experiences can be surprisingly consistent across different minds and cultures. The mysteries of consciousness are vast and profound. Discover how Emmy Noether's insights illuminate even the most personal and mysterious aspects of what it means to be human.